Welcome to From Separation to Settlement, a family law podcast.
Hello and welcome to From Separation to Settlement with Jeffrey Hale, a podcast about navigating the legal and emotional journey through family law. Jeffrey Hale is a litigation partner at Kroner Hale Law Firm who has dedicated his career to guiding families through divorce, custody, and other complex legal challenges with compassion and clear, honest advice. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, and of course, as always, I am joined by Jeffrey Hale. Jeffrey, good to see you.
Good to see you again, Kevin. Glad to be back.
So we're going to talk about, child support in Ohio, what parents need to know. So can you just start off by saying how child support is typically calculated, specifically, obviously in Ohio?
Yeah, so child support is actually one of the easier, I would say, avenues of support to calculate just because Ohio has a formula. So they've already made a formula that determines what it's going to cost to raise one child up to 8 children, and that's just a formula. So all you're doing is putting in the income of the parties, any healthcare expenses, anything that would be added in, childcare, daycare expenses, something along those lines. Then it just spits out a number.
Did you say 8 up to 8 children? Who's having that many children, Jeffrey? That's crazy talk.
I think it calculates out up to 8.
Up to 8. Okay.
So it's just the formula that they've got. So you just put in the number of children, you put in the incomes, put in the child care expenses or healthcare expenses, and it will generate a number for you.
What income is included? Is it just employment income? What all is included in that?
I know for child support, and I think that's what surprises a lot of people, because child support does not, I would say, it doesn't allow you to have the same deduction as maybe the IRS will. So in a child support calculation, all gross income is included. That means income of any sort, of any kind, can be factored into that final income number.
You mean even like gains in the stock market, anything like that?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're retired and you're drawing a pension, if you are drawing from a 401k,
wow.
All of this is factored in when it comes to gross income and consideration for what you may be paying in child support.
Is it possible for two parents to agree on a different number than the court recommends?
Yeah, a lot of times you'll have that. Is you'll get parents that will agree on a different number. That's one of the ways that you can reach an agreement, is to come to a set number that one party will decide, this is what I think I need. The other party will say, okay, I can agree to that number. Because a lot of times when you get these agreements, the number of child support turns out can sometimes be quite a bit higher than what someone's able to agree to. So you can reach agreements that way to kind of control that number on child support. The other side of that is child support. You can have deviations upward or deviations downward on that final number, depending on a lot of circumstances, but one of them being the amount of time that you spend with the children. Do you have equal parenting time? Because then that's going to play in to what that final number may be from a court. Because understanding that child support is meant to be for the children. It's meant to help support the children in that other party's home when they have the children. So if you have an equal parenting time situation, then you're going to run into a chance to deviate that number downward of what you're actually paying, because you're absorbing more of the cost. You're absorbing more of the financial responsibilities of the children because you have them more than what a standard order allows.
Okay, that makes sense. So while there's a fairly simple calculation or a mathematical calculation, there are definitely other factors involved as well, like parenting time.
Absolutely, yes.
Are there other factors that the court considers?
Just other than, the time that you have with the children is a major factor. And then they'll factor in healthcare expenses, childcare expenses, because one of the things that I think people don't realize initially coming into it is everybody wants they want the best childcare. They want the top of the line preschool for their child. Well, I mean, number one, that's expensive. And number two, when that gets factored in, it's not just an equal split automatically. So child support will put the incomes together and then they break it out in a percentage. So they add your income together and then they generate a percentage of what one party earns versus what the other party earns. And then that's how everything's broken down. So that, let's say that, $20,000 daycare bill, it won't be a 50-50 split if the incomes aren't equal. So that could be one party paying 70% of that versus the other party paying 30% of it. So people need to realize that it's not just going to be an equal. You can agree to an equal division, but if you just run the worksheet, it's going to break down along income lines.
Okay, it gets that specific. It gets that granular with it.
Yes.
Okay. Man, I gotta think that, obviously there's a lot of divorces aren't exactly smooth or pleasant between the parties. Are there a lot of arguments that come from this as far as what the court thinks someone can afford versus what someone thinks they can afford?
Yeah, all the time. So I mean, because the formula it's just a computer. It's spitting out a number. And the problem with child support in some of these instances is that it doesn't take into account the person's living situation. So someone may make X amount of dollars, but it doesn't take into account that they were forced to move out quickly, so their rent is higher, or they weren't able to find a good home, so they had to take a mortgage rate that wasn't ideal. So now their house payment is much higher. It doesn't account for that because it's just attributed that everyone's going to pay rent. Everyone's going to have a housing cost. Mm-hmm. So they don't attribute each individual's housing cost in that worksheet. So that number comes out much higher than anticipated, and then you got to add in your mortgage. Now you're looking at people who honestly cannot, they work to pay support and they can't make other living expenses.
Yeah. Does it take debt into consideration, whether it's credit card debt or any other medical debt or anything like that?
Not typically. That's considered a self-created problem. So when you have a lot of credit card debt, then you've created that. You have, for whatever reason, you've been living outside of your means. So for child support, it doesn't take that into consideration because the children still need supported. So they're still going to have needs that need to be covered. So those fall outside of their consideration.
Are there any other expenses or debts that the court will take into consideration?
I mean, you can always file. You can always object to a child support worksheet and have a hearing in front of a magistrate or a judge. So you can present any evidence you want. You can present that the debts you've absorbed from the divorce, the debts you've now taken on if you have had to leave the home. You can present that evidence, but there's no guarantee that a court is going to consider that because the worksheet is presumed to be correct. Mm-hmm. So when you go in, you're asking for a deviation upward or downward. Now, and then that's where it comes in is if you have equal parenting time, then you can start trying to deviate that downward. But on the flip side of that, you're going to run into the problem is you will have some parents who don't utilize the time they've been given or don't even utilize standard time, which is basically considered 90 overnights a year. And you will have a party come in and ask for an upward deviation to increase their support because they're absorbing more of that expense when this other party is not taking their children.
Yeah. Are there, you hope that everybody cares about their children and wants to give, support. Maybe there's different feelings about spousal support if there's some animosity, of course, but do you find that some people will attempt to underreport their income?
All the time. So,
really?
We get requests to underreport income, and we have had many cases where we get there are certain things that come out in a divorce referred to as mandatory disclosures. These are things you have to turn over: income, pay stubs, tax returns, bank statements. These are all things that the court immediately wants you to exchange. So these things come out, and there are many times that you will find underreporting, and especially when you start getting into the neighborhood of self-employed individuals, then it becomes very hard to track down and lock in what their actual income is, because they'll have a bunch of write-offs, so their taxes are not always reflective of what their gross income actually should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. Is there once it's set, once the amount is set, whether it's agreed upon or the courts give that number out, can it be changed down the road as life changes, as life events happen, whether it's, someone having more kids in another marriage or losing a job or what have you?
So the support order is never static. I mean, it's typically anything involving children is never a rock solid, this is finished forever situation. The court maintains jurisdiction over the children until they turn 18 and graduate from high school. So that includes any support orders, and life changes typically I think it's typically every 3 years. Child support, you can ask child support to do a review. They'll reach out. Everyone needs to turn in their income, which, everyone's honest about their income. So that's always a good number. But typically everyone will turn in their income, and they'll do a 3-year review. Child support may change. It may stay the same, but that's an administrative process. So if an individual doesn't like that, they can object to that finding, and it'll go before a judge. But short of the 3-year mark, if you have what they refer to as a substantial change in your income, then whether your income drops or the ex's income increases, then you can go in and ask the court to take a look at the child support again. And basically that trigger number is usually about 10 to 15% change.
Okay. And how much, does the person receiving the child support have to report what they're spending it on, or is it just, they get the money and we hope they're spending it wisely?
So a lot of people come in and ask that. They'll complain because they don't know what the money's being spent on, or they don't see it going directly to the children. But the issue with child support is it's exactly that. It's presumed that money is going to help support the children in whatever way that parent feels is appropriate. So there's no reporting, there's no recording of what that money is being spent on. The court has decided that this is the amount of money that should be going into this household where the children are spending most of their time. And so that's it. Once all they care about is that money goes from you to that household. How it comes out of that household, how it's spent, is not going to be tracked by the court.
If the paying parent is not feeling good about where the money's going, like they're not seeing enough, I don't know, extracurriculars or schooling, whatever that might be, do they have any sort of recourse to say, hey, we need to look at this because I don't think this money is going to the kids?
I mean, that's kind of a big question mark. That's, everyone hates when attorneys they'll ask a question and the attorney's answers, well, maybe.
It depends.
So, I mean, it really depends, because you have to look at, well, number one, do you have enough to even get back into court and trigger it? Mm-hmm. And number two, without being able to get back in court to trigger that jurisdiction, then the individual you're looking to investigate is not going to turn over their bank records, because there's no court pending, there's no jurisdiction, there's no subpoena to send. So unless they're just wholeheartedly being open and honest about it, and they say, look, here's my bank records, here's what I'm doing, there's really no way to see it until you have a reason to get back into court. Mm-hmm. So if they just suspect it, that's not a reason, that's not going to trigger an attorney to file a motion and put their name on the line to say, okay, we think there's some mishandling of funds and now we want to go dig. Basically, they would just look at it. That would be a fishing expedition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay, what happens if someone doesn't pay or stops paying? What's the legal ramifications of that?
Contempt. That's always your legal ramification when you are ignoring a court order. So once child support's ordered, even if it's ordered administratively, it ultimately will either, if you object and the court sets it, that's the court order. If you don't object, then the administrative order is then adopted by the court to become a court order. So anytime you ignore a court's order, your avenue of relief is going to be a contempt action.
Okay.
So we would file a motion for contempt, letting the court know, this individual is not following the order you issued, and we'd ask that and it's referred to as a show cause hearing, show cause why they shouldn't be found in contempt.
If you're the paying parent and you're really struggling and you just can't you're making the payments, but it's hurting you pretty badly. Are there ways that you can, I don't know, file a grievance or file some sort of a court document that says, hey, this is really, really hard on me. Can we look at this?
Yeah, you can always file a motion to modify and ask the court to look into it. But once again, that's going to come back to what has been the changes since the last order. So if your income has dropped, then that can be considered. If the other individual's income has gone up to cover that percentage, then that can be considered. Or, if you had a medical issue and you had to take on a lot of medical debt, or if you had a child that had a lot of medical debt, now you're paying that and trying to pay this child support, those things can be considered. It's not always going to be a guarantee, but you have an avenue to go back to the court and ask them to reconsider or to modify the pen or the last order on child support.
If somebody, if the parent who has the kids the majority of the time has way, way, way more money than the other parent, are there situations where there's no child support paid because the income is so different, or is there always something?
No, there are situations where no income is paid. First situation, most common one, is when you have parents with somewhat similar incomes and you have an equal parenting time. Then a lot of times there will not be an exchange of child support.
Okay.
You're each just agreeing to be responsible for the cost of the children when you have them. If you have an individual that, I think your example was that the parent that has the children the most also has the much higher income, then the courts can take that into consideration, and the court can always decide that it's not in the best interest of the children to have that exchange of child support, because basically what you would be doing is parent one, who has the higher income, they don't really need that money to help support the kids.
Right.
And if parent two has a much lower income, then when the kids are with parent two, that's just more money drained out of that home, making it even harder to provide for them, even when parent two has the children. So the court can step in and make a decision that it's not in the best interest to have that child support exchange.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for listening to From Separation to Settlement. If you have questions about child support or family law in Ohio, please visit kronerlaw.com to schedule a consultation with Jeff. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Leave us a review. We very much appreciate it. Jeff, always appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Kevin. Always enjoyable.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.